check out our new merch store at www.ShotOfFactsPodcast.com, where you can find our merch with shirts dedicated to each episode you love. Check it out today and support a Shot of Facts merch.
Out of luck.
Going back into real estate, because I can go off into business with you.
Yes.
Going back into real estate, I wanted to ask you, what are the pros and cons of just renting versus buying, as well as someone who is young, just now starting their careers, or not really knowing if they want to settle down in the area or not?
Well, one of the things that I would tell people is to do your research on both, and don't just go into the hype with regard to the internet. Yes, I'm a real estate professional, so of course I've made the post about renting versus buying, you paying your landlord X, Y, and Z. But let's talk about the real pros and cons of renting versus buying, because it's really specific to your situation. There is really no right or wrong way to do it per se. Right. So let's talk about the pros and cons of renting. Some of the pros for renting. Sometimes I encourage my clients to rent before they buy if they're a relocation client. That's one of the situations where renting would be a pro, because if you're moving here from Maryland, you need to look around and find your place in Atlanta before you make a decision to purchase. Because one of the things that I don't want to do is make that decision for you. I may think an area is absolutely bomb, but you might move there and be like, this is a terrible area that, I'm living in. I don't want to be here. I hate it here, or I wish I would have lived on the other side of town because that's closer to the gym I like to attend. So renting to do research, there's nothing wrong with that. Another thing that you might do, there are some people who are, still very young, wild, and free, and they don't want to be tied to something for multiple years. A lease allows you the ability to try something out for a year and then try something else the next year. You can kind of move around. Some people just enjoy that type of lifestyle. So I don't think that there's necessarily anything wrong with that. Now, so that's why I say it's based on your particular lifestyle. The cons, obviously, to that is that it doesn't go towards equity. It doesn't go towards anything that you're building necessarily in the future. So what I would say is, if you want to continue to rent, at least look at other financial products that are going to actually couple with whatever business it is that you're doing to save and invest. So find you a financial planner to actually still be building wealth in some way, even if it's not through real estate. So I don't like to necessarily bash people based on their decision to rent over buy. It's just make sure that if you are doing that, that you're still not, also not investing in other things to build wealth. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's sometimes with societal pressures.
Yes.
Want to demonize people who rent. Especially once you get into your mid to late 20s and beyond.
Right.
If you don't own a house right now, what are you doing? It's like
right. There's more than one way to skin a cat. So, just make sure that you're putting your specific plan in place and building wealth the way that you want to do it. Real estate is not the only way to do it. It is just one of the great ways to do it. So that's the renting side. Now, on the buy side, obviously the pros to buying is the ability to accumulate wealth in most cases. If we deal with another scenario, 2007, 2008, then obviously real estate isn't necessarily, the best investment, because it's very cyclical. So, real estate is going to be up one day, down the next day. So it's really a long-term investment. So there's going to be some cons in that too, because 1 year is up, 1 year is down, 1 year is up, 1 year is down. So you really, buying your first home is still not the only way to wealth. Even with purchasing a home, you have to make sure that you have additional investments in order to really build a nest egg. So I don't want you to necessarily think about buying a home as your end all be all either. Right. So a lot of people really get wrapped up into like, okay, I purchased my first home. Like, I did it. I've accomplished the American dream. You're still going to turn 65. And if all you did was buy a house, then I'm sorry to tell you, but you're not building wealth in your sleep. So you have to look at it that way. Now, I absolutely love the real estate industry. I think that it is amazing when people, helping people to get into their home is a beautiful, beautiful thing. But like I said, just make sure that you're putting a specific plan in place for you and what you want your life to look like. Don't let anybody pressure you to do that. And when you do decide to get in this journey, be patient with the process. People get into this and they expect their experience to be like their aunts or their mothers or their sisters or their brothers. be patient and listen to your realtor. We're the professional. Like, we're going to help you through this process. Like, we're not here to steer you wrong. In most cases, you know, I can't speak for everyone, but that's what we're here to do. We're here to help you along that process. So it doesn't cost you anything to work with a real estate professional when you're purchasing a home. So I highly recommend that you speak to someone that's professional, not someone, just call me. Don't call nobody else, just call me.
Yes.
Plug, right? I'm
Right.
saying,
Yep.
so,
The broker, okay. But let's talk about how, we mentioned commercial property, but also what about people who want to purchase homes to flip and sell them? How can someone get into that niche industry?
So when you want to decide to flip a property, you do not have to be a licensed agent to do that. So let me just let you know that be known. A lot of people get into that industry as wholesalers first. That seems to be kind of the inroad to people that want to get into real estate, but not necessarily get their real estate license, but want to touch real estate and start possibly flipping or making money in real estate.
So what
So
exactly is
basically,
wholesaling?
I'm sorry.
What exactly is wholesaling or being a wholesaler?
Yeah, so wholesaling is basically finding a property. So contacting a seller through different tactics. Say, for example, you have a seller that you call, you see that the house has been sitting for a while, you look them up in tax records, you skip trace their information and call them. All of us have gotten calls from random people, right? There's obviously softwares and systems out there that you can invest in order to get someone's phone number. So you contact that seller and say, hey, I would love to purchase your property, say for $100,000, right? And they're like, great, okay, cool. You get that property, and they're cool with selling it for $100,000. Then me, I'm gonna go back out to my network of investors or realtors or whatever, and I'm gonna say, hey, I have this property for sale for $110,000. So now you found a buyer who was willing to pay $110,000 for that home that you have under contract for $100,000. So when you close, you as the wholesaler get that spread of $10,000. So you don't get the asset, you don't have any asset in the game, but you get the cash in the middle. So the buyer gets the property for 110, the seller got their 100,000, you get that $10,000 net.
Okay.
So that doesn't require a real estate license to do that. It is some red tape. And if you're a real estate professional that wants to get into wholesaling, I highly encourage you to talk to your broker, because you want to make sure that you're not violating any GREC rules by doing what GREC is, Georgia Real Estate Commission. So whatever your local real estate commission is, you want to make sure that your broker is aware of what you're doing with regard to investing, because there's a lot of red tape with that. Outside of that, if you're just someone who doesn't want to wholesale, but you just want to purchase your first investment property, you're just like, hey, I have some cash. How do I do it? What do I do? The first thing that you want to do, again, is real estate professionals can help you find your very first investment property. So that's the first thing that I would do. I would consult a local professional and see if they can assist me in that process. But you also have to have access to a pretty hefty amount of cash. First time investors, if you don't have any experience, typically you're going to have to leverage payment from hard money lenders or private lenders. So there are lenders out there that are basically not your non-traditional, not your FHA, not your conventional, not your VA, but there are people out there who will lend you money for your first investment property, but the down payments are significantly higher. So you'll be looking at maybe, between a 20 to 30% down payment on the property. So that $100,000 property, you're going to need about $30,000 for your down payment on the high end to put down on that property. The advantage to those lenders is that, yes, it's going to be higher interest rate because they're higher risk loans. They're also short-term loans, so they're not going to be loans that you can use for your primary residence. It has to be for an investment property, either a rental or a fix and flip. So the interest rates are going to be higher. They have lower credit requirements as well. So that's also why your interest rate is going to be higher. So you have to account for, now you're taking on a mortgage. I had an investor confused about why he had a monthly payment. It's like, no, you're still purchasing a home. So you still have to account for that overhead of having a mortgage during the process of actually renovating that property. So you're going to have holding costs. You're going to want to have costs for your construction, first leg of work, things of that nature. There's so many steps in this process. I don't want to go on and on and on too much, but I would just go back to saying, speak with a realtor in your area so that you get educated on what that process looks like. But you need to have some coins before you jump into investing. And it's not $5,000, $10,000. Like, you need to be ready.
The real coins, y'all.
Yeah. Yes.